depends on where you find that empathy. Look at this.
Not necessarily tribal or regional.
But I have said that.
All right, welcome back. If you're just joining us, you're watching Daybreak on Trust TV. Now let's take a look at what the papers are saying, and we will start, of course, with the Daily Trust newspaper. We have the lead story here that says FG approves 3 trillion naira for subsidy, warns of tough times ahead. And we have writers here that say we'll continue borrowing to augment price, says presidency. Finance minister gives conflicting figures. Reps probe daily fuel consumption, refineries. NNPC spent 12.5 trillion naira in 16 years. And right at the top there, you'd find a story that says Constitution Review. Reps Committee rejects state police. Investors to get 605 billion naira bond repayment as government expects FAAC payments today. We also have grazing law, treat us as Benue indigents, MacBan charges or term. And details of that story can be found on page 6. We also have stories here that says NEDC to spend 6.7 billion naira in Northeast. Jonathan's cousins kidnapped in Bayelsa. We also have protests at container terminal over agent's death. And right at the footnote, you find a story there that says 2023, Saraki Okorocha joined presidential race, and details of that story can be found on page 14.
Okay, let's take a look at some more stories on the Punch newspaper this morning. The lead story there states governors NLC doubt fuel consumption. NNPC demands 3 trillion naira for subsidy. And the writers there is a lot of fraud in consumption and distribution figures. This is according to FIME. Reps raise 28 member panels to probe daily fuel consumption refineries. You'd also see Nigeria risks bankruptcy as fuel subsidy continues. Experts warn federal government. You see other stories on page 19. Power tariff shortfall hits 2.4 trillion in 6 years, and this is according to a federal government report. On page 24 on the Punch newspaper, you'd see the story about petrol landing cost rises to 282 naira per litre as oil hits $90. You'd also see on page 8 deductions from FAAC to police fund illegal. Court tells federal government. And on page 9, Tinubu graduated from our school, insists Chicago University. Oh, wow, quite interesting. You'd see other stories on the Punch as well that states Akeredolu alleges massive payroll fraud, vows sanctions against culprits. And on page 4 and page 5, you'd see inspector killed fighting herdsmen attackers, 2 bandits dead in Ogun Forest. You'd also find overwhelming majority of Igbo don't believe in secession, and this is according to the Ohaneze. These are some of the major stories on the Punch.
All right, we'll move on to the Guardian newspaper, and right at the top there, you'd see a story that says Rivers floors federal government over police trust fund deductions. Wike says it's victory for democracy, and you can find details of that story on page 2. We also have the lead story here that says governors Labour kick as NNPC presents 3 trillion naira subsidy bill to FEC. And writers here that say NGF, Labour leaders seek forensic probe of NNPC's figures, alleged fraud in consumption, distribution numbers. Nigeria will pay price for more borrowings. Presidency confirms OPS concerns. And if you come to the bottom there, you'd find more stories that says reps reject immunity for Senate President, Speaker, others, and details of that on page 3. And also from Ekiti, Fayoshe's anointed candidate Kolawole wins PDP primary. And these are some of the stories we have on the front page of Guardian newspaper.
Okay, let's take a look at some more stories on the Nation newspaper this morning. The Nation is also leading with a story about subsidy. Government to fund petrol subsidy with 3 trillion in 1 year. FEC OK's 2.557 trillion supplementary budget. Presidency, we will borrow to meet obligation. And you'd also see all the stories right there at the top. Rivers faults ex-commissioner's defense on dumped plane. You'd also see Sanwo-Olu, we will deliver Okpebi-Ojota Bridge next year. You see on page 5 and page 4 on the Nation newspaper, 2023, Saraki Okorocha to seek presidential ticket. You'd also find Fayoshe's man Kolawole is Ekiti PDP candidate. For some court stories, court stops deduction of police funds from Federation account. It's solely federal government's responsibility. Wike, it's victory for democracy. These are some of the major stories on the Nation newspaper.
All right, moving on quickly to this day newspaper. The lead story there says cash-strapped federal government approves 3 trillion naira, 17.5% of 2022 budget sustained subsidy. And lead and writers that say to send supplementary appropriation to National Assembly, mandates Finance Ministry to reconcile payment with NNPC. NLC knocks government over 18-month timeline. Ibman wants dilapidated refineries fixed. Miami, only 8 states benefiting from subsidy. And we also have a story right at the top that says, again, Rivers floors FG as courts declares deductions from Federation accounts to fund its agencies unconstitutional. Orders refund to state, and it's victory for democracy, says Wike.
Okay, now let's take one more paper before we take a look and discuss some of the stories on our dailies this morning. Talking about Business Day newspaper, right on the leading page there, you see hospitals struggle to retain staff amid migration tsunami. You also see other stories, how Nigeria can ease subsidy removal pain. And other stories there, you'd see despite high oil price, Nigeria's cost of borrowing spikes to highest level in 15 months. And you'd also see other stories there. Next generation batteries get wet in dollar rains. These are some of the major stories.
All right, we'll take a few more papers. Blueprint, unlike other newspapers, the lead story for Blueprint here says is on El Rufai on Koran Zangon Kataf crisis, and it says we lost 387 lives in 2 years to needless bloodshed. Writers here says Nigeria fast returning to barbarism, says ACF. Forum to meet Afenifere Ohaneze and others. Kaduna seeks recourse to law, peace campaigns, and details of that can be found on page 6. And we also have 2023 APC denies zoning presidential ticket to South. Okorocha joins race, Saraki 6 PDP tickets. And then we also have decision to shelve subsidy removal, not political, says presidency. Details of that can be found on page 22. These are some of the stories on front page of Blueprint.
Okay, we have Hamza Idris, the general editor, Daily Trust, in the studio this morning to discuss some of the major, headlines on our dailies this morning. Good morning.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Okay, now the story that seemed to be making wave on our dailies this morning is the issue of petrol subsidy. And on the Daily Trust newspaper, it states federal government approves 3 trillion for subsidy and warns of tough times. And the presidency is saying we'll continue to borrow to augment price. What are your thoughts about that?
Serious problem. Yes, and I pity us because it's an unfortunate situation. This is over 60 years since the discovery of oil in Nigeria, but we are yet to get the sector ready to work, and it's rather unfortunate. While other countries in the world are migrating to greener energy and all that, we are unable to manage whatever energy we may wish to call petrol and other resources. The issue of subsidy will remain with us, and it's rather unfortunate because I believe the world is laughing at Nigeria. Yes, because this is something that we're supposed to have addressed, as I said, over 60 years ago. Because if you have functional refineries, you have good policies and laws regulating the sector, we should be celebrating. Today, oil per barrel is over $80. Countries who put their acts together are celebrating. But in Nigeria, the irony is the higher the price of oil goes, the more problematic it becomes for us, simply because we don't manage the resources. We don't have the refineries to take care of these resources. So the issue of subsidy is around this. Assuming we have functional refineries, nobody will be talking about subsidy. But because the refineries are not there, we are still looking for private sector to give us the refineries and rely on it. And the private sector is not Father Christmas. So the problem will remain. And Nigeria will have no option but to borrow. Long ago they said there is nothing like subsidy. They changed the name to under recovery. But they are now coming to terms with the reality. And it's a serious problem, because if you are allocating about 3 trillion naira to subsidize petroleum, what else will you allocate to other basic necessities like health, like security, like education, and what have you? So I think we should blame ourselves for not using the resources that God blessed us with for our advantage.
Okay, some would really ask, how much crude do we really export?
Well, the NNPC should be in the right position to tell you that, but we should also ask how many liters of refined oil do we import? And I think this is a very simple question, because if you go to the dashboard in the NNPC or the now new Petroleum Downstream and Upstream Commission, you will see the figures there. Where the problem is how many liters do we actually consume in Nigeria? Nobody will tell you this. Of course, those regulating the sector will tell you that, okay, maybe 700 trucks or 3,000 trucks or whatever, leave the tanks in Lagos, in Warri, and all that. But nobody will give you the real figures of what we consume. What we have in the public gallery is that we consume over 60 million liters in Nigeria. And is it true? I have my doubts, because I have traveled around Nigeria very well, and I know that Nigeria subsidizes petrol for all our neighbors. What do I mean? Chad, Cameroon, Niger, Benin, up to Central African Republic. They rely heavily on Nigeria for the fuel they consume. So while we deny ourselves the money, the legal money, accruing to the country, which should be used to provide basics for the citizens, because of our laxity, because of our inability to police our borders, now we feed our neighbors with this. In some places, rat cannot cross the border without it being traced. Yes, but go to Jibia in Katsina State. Go to Daura, up to Kongolam in Katsina State. go to Dikwa or Gambaro Ngala in Borno State. Go to Banki in Borno State. Go to Cross River. At night you will cry because you will see dozens of trailer loads of petroleum resources, you know, using the right border, our recognized borders. You know, smuggling in court because it's no longer smuggling. If they are using illegal routes and all that, that is when you call it
So
smuggling.
what are the security agents there?
They have failed. They have failed. So I am worried when the House of Reps said they have instituted
A
2
28
committees.
28-member panel.
They are not going to do anything because we only react on the spur of the moment, which is very unfortunate. The House of Reps is just taking this decision simply because there is an uproar yesterday that the Federal Executive Council has approved 3 trillion naira. Then it now went into it. For 7 years, this government, I don't want to even go to the next government because we keep blaming the previous administration. Somebody will accuse the colonialist of this monumental failure, which is very unfortunate. Now the House of Reps is saying they are going to investigate. What are they going to investigate? These things I'm saying now, it's not from the moon. These are the facts. So why constituting a committee? What will the committee? They are not going to come out with anything, I can assure you. And in the next couple of days, the whole committee's name or whatever will fizzle out because other issues will come up. So we are not a serious country. The legislature, the judiciary, the executive, we are all not serious.
All right, now the presidency seems to be blaming, you know, borrowings on a subsidy. So are they saying that once it is removed, that borrowings will stop or drastically reduce?
You see, failure has no father. Failure is an orphan. Yes, whoever fails, you see him blaming his neighbor for his misfortune. And success is what people associate themselves with. Now the presidency is saying Nigeria will pay a price. Of course, we'll pay a price, but we should get it right. I'm a reporter. Government is not doing any favor for the people, saying that we will pay the price. For what? Now, assuming we don't have the fuel, meaning we will buy a liter for 2,000? So is it a favor? It is the failure of government to fix the refineries. Assuming they are serious, just this government, when they came in 7 years ago, they should have built like 3 refineries. Forget about the Port Harcourt, which they said they are doing turnaround maintenance, the Kaduna refinery, the Port Harcourt refinery, and all that. These are old refineries. A serious country, after 20, 30 years, I don't have the technological know-how, but you should know that you will not compare, somebody who is 20 years old with somebody who is 50 or 60, right? No matter how you try to fix somebody, the burns of somebody who is 60 years, he will never be like, a toddler or somebody of 15 years. Now, what the government should have done is to keep optimizing the refineries that we have, build new ones, give adequate support for individuals to build modular refineries and all that. Because if you have this on ground, nobody will be talking about subsidy, because we talk about subsidy simply because we export the crude oil and then we import refined oil. Very, very unfortunate. Yes, so assuming we are refining it here, we stand to benefit a lot. In 2006, I was in Adamawa State, Apti American University, during its second matriculation ceremony. You understand? Now I interviewed a professor of petroleum engineering. He nearly cried because he said, Nigeria don't know what it is missing. Yes, by exporting the crude oil, because from there you stand to extract no fewer than 15 various things that you can benefit from. So his conclusion was that we are just dashing the crude oil because those countries that are buying it, they extract rubber, they extract tar, they extract what we use to do jelly, so many things. But that notwithstanding, after giving them, we now pay them again to give us just one element from 15 to import it. And this is where we are even having problem depleting the foreign earning, which should have been deployed to other sectors that will improve the lives of Nigeria. So the truth is Nigeria is not doing favor for its citizens. Yes, we are paying the price of the delinquency and lack of focus of our leaders. And this goes beyond this administration. But as a leader or as leaders, if you castigate your predecessor, believing that he did not do things right, when you take over, draw a line, carry on, learn from the lessons, you know, that he failed to use, and then do better. Not to come and repeat or even do worse. Okay. Because we are now paying more than 3 times what was being paid during the previous administration. And this same administration disputed the claim by the former administration that what is subsidy, there is nothing like subsidy. But here we are now, around 17.something% of the national budget going for what they call under recovery. Now they are not even dodging the real name, subsidy, because at the time they were calling it under recovery. But now they have come to terms with their reality that we have failed.
Okay. Now, could you talk to us, you know, about the conflicting figures given by the finance minister? Because one would want to wonder and say, doesn't this undermine the transparency of our government?
Yes. You know, they rely heavily on estimates. When she met the Senate President, that's the Finance Minister, Zainab Ahmed, when she met the Senate President last week, she quoted 250 billion or thereabout as what is being expended every month to subsidize this petroleum subsidy. And then yesterday, after the Federal Executive Council meeting, when she came out briefing reporters, she now said 270 billion every month. Now this is where the problem is. It might not be mischief, you understand, from our end or from our end. We all have our facts. Probably she is using the prevailing value of the dollar to give the figures, while we in the newsroom, we rely on what you said. We hold leaders to account. Yes, if you say A yesterday and today you say B, C, D, we make reference to what you said yesterday, and there is nothing wrong in that.
Okay, now let's take a look at some other stories that made the front page of newspapers. Let's see, there's this one here about the Police Trust Fund and the court stopping government from, you know, deductions. What do you think about it?
Yes, this one, it is the governor of Rivers State that went to court questioning the legality of the deduction, I think 0.5% or something like that, from monies accruing to the federal government in order to augment what goes to the police. He said it is illegal. And courts, you know, they give you what you ask. And as I said earlier, the courts are not Father Christmas, meaning when you ask for A, they will just look at the validity or otherwise of what you ask. They make reference to relevant constitutional provisions and all that, and then grant your prayers. Now, he said it is wrong for the federal government to fund Police Trust Fund. What we should ask is, what is Police Trust Fund? You see, all the soldiers on the street now, they're not supposed to be there. because that should be the responsibility of the police to maintain civil authority. The military is supposed to be in their barracks and now to protect the sanctity and territorial integrity and sovereignty of the country. But as we speak, you have military operatives in all the 36 states of the Federation, no exception. On the streets, I mean not in the barracks in those states, on the streets, simply because of the failure or inability of the police to do its work. Now, because of this, our leaders, based on advice by former Inspector Generals of Police, former security experts and all that, advised that we should have what they call police trust fund. It's like a stopgap measure. It's like an intervention agency to come and see how they can raise funds to quickly address the teething problems afflicting the police in terms of equipment, in terms of offices, in terms of accommodation, in terms of weapons, and in terms of even uniforms and all that. That was why they formed the Police Trust Fund, so that they will be getting some percentages from different places, even companies. I have the records there. They're supposed to be getting contributions from different, apart from the federal government, even companies, from their profit and all that. They're supposed to be donating something so that the fund can quickly use what they get to support the police. You understand? Now, the governor of Rivers State said, no, it is wrong, because the act establishing the police clearly states how it should be funded. And he feels that it is very wrong for the federal government to start deducting from what is meant to be shared among the 3 tiers of government. He has his points, but maybe beyond that, it's part of the restructuring thing, and then it's part of the clamor for state police. You can see on the front page of our paper, we have another story, which was saying reps not comfortable with the state police. But what Wiki did indirectly is making case for state police, and that is why he tackled the federal government. You know, he hit the federal government below the belt, because they now have to go to maybe for appeal. But let me tell you something. When did we have the police trust fund, and is it really doing some of its work? Personally, I interviewed some prominent people, you know, who now raised the alarm that the activities of the police trust fund is also shrouded in politics. And they have a lot of money there for them to spend, but because of the interest of some people there and the Ministry of Police Affairs, they are unable to even do their work. And they're supposed to, you know, activate or recharge the police sector in 6 years or thereabout. But up till now, of course, last month or 2 months ago, we saw them, you know, showcasing some vehicles and all that. But honestly, it's a disappointment what they are doing. So we are very good in coming up with reformed measures, but implementation is a problem.
You know, I'm really very keen, quickly before we wrap up this segment, you know, given our security situation presently in the country, isn't it very imperative that we have state police?
It's a dicey question, Zainab. Yes. Left to me, we should have it, because, in fact, we already have state police, informal state police. Yes, because you see the Hisba in Kano, they are policing the society. And you can imagine without the Hisba how chaotic Kano would be. For every intersection for every T junction, in the markets, you know, around schools, you see the Hisbah operatives. If you go to Maiduguri, if not for the civilian JTF, I don't know how we will have contained the activities of the Boko Haram insurgents. Now the Amotekun in Lagos, you understand? Then the one they call, is it Obebiogu in the south or something? You see, all these are informal
State police.
State police, yes. Because many of them, all Hisbah operatives in Kano receive, I think, commission or salary in one way or the other. All of those working in Borno, in Yobe, in Adamawa, you know, the livestock guards in Benue, all of them, they receive salary. You see, so these are state police, but we have this penchant of, you know, talking over and again on certain things that, okay, we must have things in the constitution, we must have backing of the parliament and all that. In Britain, do they have written constitution? Sometimes they are just, they work on conventions and all that. Now these state governors, I think they should just continue to use the, what they have now, because some of them take pump action, you know, and other weapons in order to protect themselves and then to protect some of the communities they are asked to police. But simply because we politicize everything, the governors want to have powers to say, okay, River State Police Command, apart from the, you know, the National Police Command you have there. And by the time you have this, the fear is that many of these governors will abuse the police. And that time, they will give them AK-47, they will give them AA, they will give them rocket launchers. So the fear is that they will use the instrument of state to descend on the opposition, to descend on people with dissenting voices against them. That is the fear. But if not, what is wrong in having state police? There is no problem in having state police.
All right, and with that, we will wrap up newspaper review. Thank you so much, Hamza Idris, for joining us on the show, General Editor, Daily Trust. We hope to have you once again.
Inviting me.
The situation where you find that they look like the same.
Not necessarily tribal or regional.
But I have said that